with Ghada, and you have 4 minutes each to answer however many questions you wish.
Thank you. Yeah, I guess I can tackle the Arab question. I mean, obviously it's a painful question, but I want to recommend 2 books on Palestine. These are my favorite books: The Ethnic Cleansing of Palestine by Ilan Pape, and my personal favorite is Palestinians, Peasants to Revolutionaries, and that was written by Rosemary Sayer. It's from 1970s, but this book, it looks at Palestine pre-1948, and it really centers the voices of Palestinians, especially those who are in refugee camps in Lebanon, and their voices are frequently erased. But in both of these books, it really touches on how the Arab regimes have collaborated in a very hypocritical fashion since 1948, Jordan specifically, would secretly collaborate with Israel, really not, Jordan had quite the military power to take on Israel, and it didn't, right? It wanted a part of Palestine, and there's a lot of dirty politics, and I want to separate that from the people, though, because the people, until now, through and through, they support Palestine, and we have been seeing, in Lebanon, they're burning the Israeli embassy. They're in Jordan, there were huge protests, and they canceled, the Jordanian king canceled his meeting with Biden, and because they're afraid, yeah. So they're definitely afraid of their people. We also recognize that a lot of it, especially the Gulf region, is highly authoritarian, right? And these are regimes, like Saudi Arabia, that are highly supported by Canada and Israel and the USA. So it's all that is to say is I don't see Arab countries as all that different from here. I think the people there, of course, they strongly support Palestine. And we have to recognize that Israel is not just anti-Palestinian. I mean, it's invaded Egypt, Lebanon, Syria, until now, they occupied the Golan Heights, and it's they pose a security risk for the entire region, right? So yeah, I think obviously it's shameful on these Arab regimes that continue to remain silent to suppress their grassroots, but I see definitely a lot of hope in the people they're organizing, just like we're organizing here. With regards to about what other organizations we can support, so actually I did want to talk a bit about this parties and groups, because for example, I have launched a petition a couple of weeks ago calling on MPs and MPPs to resign in solidarity with Palestine, including allies, actually especially allies, because I believe personally that all 3 major parties, all 4 of them, are irredeemable. And I think that what we need to do is if we can have a group of independents like Sarah Jama, that's how we can kind of, challenge the status quo that is in the government. The NDP, when my brother and I, and a bunch of us, we disrupted the NDP convention. When NDP delegates joined us, they revoked their passes, right? Jagmeet Singh, he's still very much supporting the Israeli regime, even though he's calling, for a military embargo, and they called it a genocide. They're, as we mentioned, they've also expelled Sarah Jama for doing the bare, she's just for supporting Palestine. So what I'm asking actually is for MPs, if they were truly supporting Palestine, is to resign so they can become vocal advocates, like someone like Claire Daly in the European Union. She's an independent socialist, and she's highly respected, has a huge following. So about Palestinian organizations, I know there was the 4 that were targeted by Israel that I really respect, I think, including Ad-Damir, Adala. So these are organizations that you can follow and support. But yeah, I think there's a lot we could be doing here. Also, there's Stop the JNF as a movement. You touched a bit on the JNF. For me, the JNF is it is the precursor to Israel. It was founded in 1901 as a so-called environmental group, but it actually was a colonial entity until now. The UN recognized it as a discriminatory institution, and its sole goal was to basically gain Palestinian land on behalf of Israel, because it's a non-profit, so it's able to whitewash colonialism, and the JNF is still recognized as a charity by Canada. So that's really disgusting. I think we need to try to revoke the charitable status of JNF. Even CBC has exposed how a lot of JNF funds went to the Israeli army, and so that's it was being audited by the CRA.
30 seconds.
So yeah, I think if we focus on JNF and also look at like donations, and we challenge groups like CJA, B'nai B'rith, and all these lobby groups here, I think that would go a long way. Keep it there.
Thank you, Tamara. Barry, 4 minutes.
To Gary's question, can Arab leaders be pushed? They certainly can be, and they certainly should be. But it's going to take a very big, sustained push. And that's why we are, inspired to see mass actions all around the world, across the Arab, Middle East and North Africa, but beyond that, millions of people, millions, almost close to 1 million in Jakarta, Indonesia, close to 1 million in London on more than one occasion, over 300,000 in the streets on several occasions. But yes, the Arab leaders can and should be pushed, and that's our hope, and that's up to the masses in the Arab countries to advance that perspective. We need to do all that we can in this country to support the general movement. That's why I read the clip from the Star about the oil boycott. Some of the governments that speak in favor of an oil boycott do so because they are subject to pressure. Perhaps they have no intention of actually doing it, but they feel obliged to press the neighboring Arab countries to do something. And at a certain point, this quantity will turn into the qualitative movement that is undeniable, and there will be a boycott, which will affect the allies of the Zionist state. Israel doesn't get much oil from those countries, the oil-rich countries in the Middle East, but the allies of Zionism, since they destroyed the pipeline between Russia and Germany, need more oil. And where are they going to find it? So an oil boycott is instrumental. Thank Julius for his remarks. Julius got 21% of the vote in running against the establishment at the OFL convention, and that's a damn good vote. And that follows on decades of work by us and our allies against the Zionist apartheid state, against all of the cruelties it has exacted on the Palestinian people and on many others. 21% of the vote at the OFL. And at the Ontario NDP Provincial Council meeting that took place yesterday, there was a motion to offer Sarah Jama her place back again in the NDP caucus of MPPs at Queen's Park, and it obtained 34%. In other words, in a body of about 200 delegates, half of whom are paid to carry out the NDP leadership line, over a third were prepared to disagree openly and buck the line emanating from the top. That means that there's work to be done. I would say the NDP is unlike the Conservatives, the Liberals, the Bloc Québécois, the Green Party, etc., in that it is based on the labor movement. And so I wouldn't raise this initiative in the Liberal Party. If some liberals want to do it, fine, let them go ahead. But for me, as a working class political activist, I do it in the NDP because it's different, because it's organically tied to the NDP. Now, whether we're fighting for Sarah Jama to be restored to the NDP caucus at Queen's Park, are we going to urge others to quit while we're urging that she be restored? Is there a momentum to create an independent caucus of MPs and MPPs purely on the basis of this issue? Well, when we see such a development, we'll be the first to endorse it, but we don't see that yet. Other organizations to support in the Palestinian movement, well, in Canada, the Canadian Coalition for BDS is something to which Socialist Action is affiliated. A booklet that I recommend that you read is on the table there. Maybe Judy will uphold it. It's The Hidden History of Zionism. It's the orange booklet right near where Peter is sitting, right there. Yeah, you should buy a copy of that. It's what I based my speech on. And organizations in Palestine, the PFLP and the PDFLP are radical organizations, radical nationalist organizations that are doing important work, and Samidun, which has been fighting for prisoners' rights, is another organization that deserves our support. But we need to build revolutionary working class parties in every country, including in Palestine and including in the Canadian state. And Socialist Action aspires to play that role here in building a revolutionary party that is for internationalism, is for anti-capitalism on a global scale. Thanks.
Add one word. I just wanted to add about Turkey, because I mentioned Arab countries and Turkey. You know, Erdogan portrays himself as this like Islamic savior, and he's like so pro-Palestine, and he's actually a huge hypocrite. Turkey is one of Israel's strong allies. You know, actually, speaking of oil, like from what I understand, Israel gets a lot of its oil from Azerbaijan, and Turkey allows it. Turkey could actually block that, or Turkey, you know, they still, you know, cooperate militarily with Israel, and even there was this recent rally that I think he allowed in like an empty airport, but they actually like violently suppress Turkish protests in solidarity with Palestine. So I just want to stay aware how a lot of like the speech of, you know, these Muslim leaders is actually hypocritical, and you know, this is actually why we're also challenging a lot of the mosques here and Muslim institutions that are still accepting politicians. You can see here that Muslim worshippers, they're like furious, and they're rising up and saying, stop allowing these politicians into our mosques. You know, they're here to pretend that they're not Islamophobic and they're not racist, but they obviously are when they're failing to even call for a ceasefire, right? We saw Mayor Crombie and Trudeau and Parieva, all of them getting confronted. So we're seeing even a push here, right, against these like, you know, Muslim authorities, and you know, and so yeah, I believe strongly in like the grassroots. Actually, I wanted to give just a big shout to my brother Khaled. He has a page on Instagram called Pali Threads, and he does this I don't know, segment called like Snake Saturdays. So yesterday he wrote it on Erdogan and how he's a snake. So like you can follow up with like all like the hypocrites, and yeah, I think we just need to keep calling out that hypocrisy.